Okay, so back to Lou. You listen to them talking and you think about the best way to arrange the material for the book. On the one hand, you have the activities they did during the day, all the things that strengthened them as a group and made the story more human. On the other hand, the first night at the vampires, a dinner that didn't turn out as the vampire had probably expected. You adjust your glasses, a habit almost as old as you. Why are you asking yourself all these questions? At what point had you lost confidence in your writing process? You'd like to write as you used to, one chapter after the other, without worrying too much about the structure. Books are nothing more than an act of accumulation, you said in one of your prefaces. Prefaces. You'd been commissioned to write at some point. Now, nobody commissions anything from you. You'd had a hard time finding a publisher for the new book, and to think 10 years ago, any non-fiction publisher in the country would have paid astronomical amounts to have you among their authors. Phew. Finally a good sign. The story of these three kids had made you lose track of time. Would the same thing happen to your future readers? You'll have to excuse me. I have to make a phone call. I don't think it'll take more than 10 minutes. There's a phone across the street. Jimmy and Christine nod. Before you leave, you reach into your pockets. Oh shit. Ask Jimmy for a quarter. Jimmy raises his head and looks at you. An awkward silence ensues. I have nothing on me. Maybe next time. Takes you a second to realize, to understand the sarcasm in his words. Jimmy lives on the streets, surviving on whatever people give one. Oh, I didn't realize he'd be homeless. You start to apologize, but Jimmy shakes his head. Uncomfortable and not knowing what to say next, you appreciate that Christine starts going through her purse. We got a trophy for pots. Let's see. I always have some spare change, in case something happens with my son. She's got a son. I wonder if she's still with the same guy. It's only a second, but you notice the expression on Christine's face the moment she mentions her son. It doesn't take a professional to notice the tension that still exists between these two. Thank you, Christine. I'll be back in 5 minutes, 10 at the most. You know they won't miss you too much. Jimmy and Christine have a lot to talk about. It's raining outside and you think about the concept of the pathetic fallacy. Okay, this guy is like totally a vampire or something. Like he keeps focusing on him. Was nature mourning the commercial success that your last books didn't achieve? The funny thing is that you don't really care about money. Or rather, you're not interested in it as an end in itself. You just see it as a tool that allows you to continue your research and do damage control. Oh my god, do you think it's the goat? Oh, it could be the goat, actually. I'm really hoping that these are all connected. Like, apart from just Lou, like, writing them as books. I hope they're connected more than that. You'd made some decisions in your career that you regretted, but you always tried to make up for it. Your heart almost came out your mouth. Xantos, you motherfucker. Oh, wait, we know him. You hang up the phone and the coin is returned. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? You let the air out of your mouth, and although you've seen many things over the years, terrible things, unimaginable for some, you can't deny that Xantos has indeed frightened you. What happened? Why did you leave the diner? Xantos seems nervous, and he doesn't need to tell you anything for you to know what's wrong with him. Go. But 10 minutes tops. You go back to the booth and dial Lee's number. Lee is Xantos' adoptive father. Oh! Maybe he's the connection? He's gonna have a wank, please. And your friend, you might say. You feel responsible for everything that had happened to him. After all, Lee was one of the main characters in your... Oh, no, yeah. Batman from the... Of course. Yeah, it is. The phone rings. Think about it, 1966. Since that fateful night in late November 1966, Lee could feel the effects of every possible present at once. Pixel Pulper. We got a trophy. It's hard for you to imagine something like that, to feel each and every possible present as if they had happened. What impact would this have on a person? It was not a superpower, that much is clear. It was a curse. 10 minutes is 9 minutes more. 1 minute? Jesus. Damn, I definitely need more than 1 minute. Lee's relationship with Victoria, whom he had married 3 months before their daughter was born, had deteriorated in recent years. Oh, that's a shame. Filling all those presents where Victoria had lied to him, insulted him, cheated on him, belittled him, or worse, had been too... Oh, wow. She actually cheated on him? And that was why he had moved to the other end of the country, and only you have his number. Lee... Oh, wow, so Lee is in this as well. How many presents will there be where it's not you on the other end of the phone but someone else? Could these presents be quantified, enumerated for analysis? You shake your head trying to concentrate on the conversation and to stop thinking about all the possible ramifications that every act, no matter how small, may have. Do you think I'd forgotten? Lee laughs and starts telling you about the last stories he read. Lee is a fan of crime fiction. You had given him several dozen issues of the Ellery Queen mystery magazine, and you called him religiously for him to tell you what happened in the stories he liked the most. Lee needs to talk. He needs to be in contact with another human being. It was the least you could do after ruining his life. What about my son? Is he learning anything? You notice his voice breaks when he mentions Xantos. You tell him he is, that he's helping you observe the people you're interviewing. As if he had been summoned, you see Xantos walking across the street. You cover the phone with your hand and call him. You say Jimmy's name and make a gesture for Xantos to watch him. Xantos nods and you go back to talking to Lee. I don't want to take anything for granted this time. Lee doesn't respond. But you think you know what he's thinking. Lou? Thank you. Before you can say anything else, he hangs up. You hold your head and take a deep breath. You had screwed him up and he thanks you. You think about the new book. The biography of a very special vampire. Will they be okay when they find out? When they know the whole truth? Christine has a family, but Jimmy, you know how much he suffered. It's impossible to foresee how he might react. But isn't there a possible present for any outcome? No. No. The end is always one and only one, and you have to learn to live with that. Wow, okay, so this is going to end up being like, this is going to tie it in together even more than I expected. Chapter 5, back to Jimmy. You think you exist, and therefore you do. This is nice, isn't it? But you'd rather not think, and exist without knowing it. So, what are we doing today? Let's go fishing. How many fish does the old geezer want? Christine glares at Doug. You know that Martin is like a father to Christine. Christine? 9. You let out a whistle. And if we bring him 9, is he going to tell us where to catch the albino tarpon? Christine nods. But how are we going to catch so many fish? Last time it was a disaster. Doug's right. But what he doesn't take into account is that Martin gave Christine some advice. Lift rod. Don't laugh. But Martin says that to fish we have to open our senses. Do you know what synesthesia is? Synesthesia is the ability to perceive something with a different sense than the one stimulated. Seeing a colour when you hear a musical note, for example. Martin says that to be a good fisherman, you have to develop synesthesia. When you catch something and try to put it out of the water, there's going to be resistance. The fish is going to try to get loose. And what you have to do is imagine those movements in a specific colour. Green for a weak movement, yellow for a normal one, and red for a sudden one. As long as we respond with movements that compensate for the fish's attempts to escape. It's going to be confusing, isn't it? Creature from the Black Lagoon, you have to see it. It's hard to compete with Christine. House of Wax, Invaders from Mars, The Thing from Another World. It doesn't matter what horror movie it is, she's watched them all. That's not fair. Your boyfriend works at the movie theatre. There he is again, Christine's boyfriend. Is it really necessary to mention him so much? You take a deep breath and look up at the sky. You're doing great, thank you, Vane. The shape of the truck's hood fits perfectly against your back, and you force yourself to smile. Toad season, Doug? Doug raises his eyebrows and starts making noises with his mouth. Nice one, Doug. You can't contain your laughter. You're disgusting. Doug laughs too, with a hoarse laughter, almost as if he were choking. You remember that afternoon of last summer very well. Doug had gotten a vinyl record he was obsessed with. See some off cue. Yeah, no worries, Chris, thank you. You'd seldom seen him like that, and how he'd insisted that you two listen to it. The record was part of a collection documenting the sounds of the world. Everything from distant cultures to meteorological phenomena. Doug wasn't particularly interested in the collection, but this record, it was special. It included recordings of toads singing in the middle of mating season. Could you please stop? Christine's anger only makes you laugh harder. Doug finally stops imitating the toads. The laughter gradually fades away and ends up turning into a sustained sigh. You look at your friend and think about what he confessed to you that afternoon. It was sad, but neither of you had older siblings or a father figure to lean on. That vinyl record with its songs of toads during mating season was the closest thing Doug had to a Playboy. What's that? On that branch, you see? Where? The bat soars into the air with a loud screech. Come here. We know it's you. Okay, that's kind of cute. How long have you been there? You're not following us, are you? I told you, I am indebted to you. See? He's a freak. So? Are we good? The vampire nods. You can't deny that his presence at the drive-in bothers you a little. The drive-in is something for the three of you. The only child's club. The only child's club? The question takes you by surprise, so he can read thoughts. Wasn't that what Christine had said? That the vampire could read your minds? I'm an only child too. Or at least that's what I thought. There's something in his eyes that forces you to pay attention. A sadness that you can relate to. And considering Doug and Christine's silence, you could swear they're feeling something similar. Is he really an only child? The vampire tells you that he believes so for most of his life, raised by a strong mother and an older gentleman, but after the conversion, he had discovered that he was born on the other side of the Atlantic, and that he had a twin brother. However, his original family had given him to a couple who couldn't have children, and who were about to immigrate to the United States. Isn't that tragic? Two brothers separated at birth, and turned into two only childs? The vampire says that his name's not important, but that you can call him List? How did he become human? How does someone turn into a vampire? He puts his hand on his jugular and remains silent. List. The vampire just told you to call him List. Wait, I thought that was his brother's name. After listening to him, you can't deny he has suffered just as much as the three of you. What will the others say? Will they give List the chance to prove himself as a new member of the club? I wonder if it's supposed to be like an abbreviated name version of List stats. Oh, that's quite short again. Oh my god, we're playing as Xantos. We're playing as the goat child. Exciting. Lou calls it goat Tourette's. You know he doesn't mean it in a bad way, as well as being your godfather. Lou is a writer. And sometimes writers use words like shortcuts. Your mum didn't like it when Lou said goat Tourette's. You had read about Tourette's, and you understand the comparison. Doctors call the tension in the muscle group that the individual with Tourette's relieves with motor tics and premonitory urge. So I guess he didn't become a lawyer after all. Your case is different. The urgency is not focused on a specific muscle group, but rather in the whole of your being. With every kick, every jump, and every blow, you feel alive, as if all of a sudden the veil were pulled back. Goat Tourette's is what allows you to bear being unable to show yourself to the world as you really are, as you were when your parents and your godfather found you that night in 1966. Goat Tourette's is the way you found to forgive yourself for at least a little while. Wait, what? What? It's not the first time this happens to you. What am I doing? A ruthless deconstruction of one's automated actions. How does one lift a foot? How does jumping work? And crouching? And what are the steps to take when crouching? That was right though, no? Goat Tourette's is the way you found to forgive yourself, at least for a little while. Oh, I did it! There he is with his big goat face. The spasmodic movements release the accumulated tension, and for a moment you feel the veil being lifted. Behold the goat boy! What's happening? I have no idea. I have no explanations. It's the grown-up goat, though. It's the grown-up goat. Shame he's not a lawyer. In Xantos, son of Victoria and Lee, godson of Lou, and I'm a goat man. You breathe a sigh of relief, but you know the sensation won't last long, and you still have things to do. This one's high into the yeah. So Lou is also in this game, who's the writer from the other two games. The goat boy comes from the Mothman game at the end. But I don't think there's been anything to tie it to Banson Knights yet, but I think there will be. You wonder if Lou made the right choice in selecting you for the job. Xantos, private detective. You hope to one day have your own sign on the door of an office downtown. But that's still a long way off. You nod to Lou and walk back into the Nyack Cafe. Okay, that's actually quite cute. He longs to be a detective. You're just starting. And for now, your tasks are pretty simple. Lou asks you to watch Jimmy and Christine during the interview, and to follow Jimmy after the meeting. Your godfather told you that after telling them the truth, anything could happen, and that you had to be very careful with the consequences of their actions. And you? Wasn't that what you were? A consequence of their actions? That was a very short chapter. It's chapter 7, back to Christine. Okay. Excuse me. How was stream this morning, Poppy? Did you have fun? The raindrops pound the roof, and you have to speak loudly to be able to hear each other. It's really coming down out there. Why does he feel the need to talk all the time? When you have nothing to say, you just stay quiet. It's really coming down out there. And why describe what everyone can already see? You stretch a bit. Do we go back then? Both of them nod. Jimmy seems like he's going to say something else, but ultimately changes his mind. Another of his astute observations. Your legs dangle from the platform. A gentle breeze caresses your arms, and you sigh. You wonder what you'll remember of all this 10 years from now, and in 20, in 25? Let me think a little. Oh, they're playing chess. You look at your cousin. Since the night you started hanging out with the vampire at the drive-in, the dynamics of the Only Kids Child's Club had changed. Doug spends most of his time with List. And now that you have more space for just the two of you, Jimmy seems to have closed in on himself. Talk about Doug. I like my cousin's games, but I don't know. I always feel there's something missing. You regret what you said as soon as the words leave your mouth. Out of everything you could have said about Doug, why choose that? Something like what? The 10 solitaire, for example. The solitaire? There's a trick to make a Super 10 with zero effort. Jimmy opens his eyes wide. The first thing you have to do is add up the cards of each colour on the board. Let's suppose that the black cards add up to 31 and the reds come to 38. Take 31 for 38 and you're left with 7. 7 in favour of the red. Once you know that, the only thing left to do is flip the cards from the deck until you get a red 3. And when that happens, you put it all down. The red 3 plus the 38 red cards on the table add up to 41. 41 minus the 31 of all the black ones. 10. Wow. Why did you tell Jimmy about the trick? Shouldn't you have talked to Doug first, given him a chance to improve the solitaire? You don't want to admit it, but finding mistakes in your cousin's creations gives you a certain confidence. It's not just a satisfaction of finding someone else's mistakes, it's something else. Something you don't want to think about too much. Do you think what Liz said about the games is true? I'm sorry, what? Jimmy raises his shoulders. He looks like he wants to say something but regrets it. I don't know if it's true, but I think it makes sense. I always wondered about the origins of certain board games. To think they're an advanced society's experiment to study us, it seems more credible than the idea that a random person could have designed something like chess. Did you talk to Maggie? Huh? If you talk to Maggie, Jimmy looks at you for a few seconds and finally looks down. She called by to give my mum something. That's it. Here's that's it annoys you, as if Jimmy thinks he owes you an explanation. Fuck. Mating 4. Forced. They finally finished the game. You didn't know how much more you could take. You stand up and smooth out your pants. Doug starts picking up the pieces. One more? No, that's enough for me today. Why didn't you tell us more of your stories? Liz nods and you get ready to listen. Which story would you like to hear? Godfrey the Glue-Maker, Gilbert the Lumberjack, Milo the Thief. Let's hear about the Lumberjack. Maybe we'll see like a hairy man with a beard. I'll tell you the story of Gilbert the Lumberjack. Gilbert wielded the axe as few others could. He lived a nomadic life dedicated exclusively to work. Carpenters and builders adored him. One day while chopping at a very thick oak tree, Gilbert heard a groan. He pressed his ear to the trunk. Could the tree be complaining? He removed the axe from the trunk and swung it again. There was no doubt there was the groan again. Confused, he dropped the axe and paused to think for a few minutes. Gilbert didn't particularly like his job, but it was the only thing he knew how to do. He had estimated that if he kept doing it for 5 more years, he could retire and live in one of those small towns he had passed by. Determined to follow through with his plans, he picked up the axe and ignored the groans of the oak tree. But from that day on, Gilbert began to hear the sobs of all the trees he felled. Oaks, pines, firs, beeches, they all suffered under the lumberjack's axe. Although it wasn't easy for him, Gilbert learned to ignore the whining. It was the only way he could keep working. 5 years later, Gilbert retired. He settled in a village and soon after met Estrid, whom he married. Estrid was slender and frail looking. Gilbert loved her deeply. Before long, the young woman contracted an illness that left her bedridden. She lay on her bed all day long, and Gilbert brought her tea and sang to her. Estrid grew weak every day until one afternoon an attack of withering pain foretold her end. The woman kept writhing, crying and moaning loudly. Meanwhile, Gilbert was in the courtyard of the house. And although he could hear her, he kept carving without even blinking. The figures of 2 lovers melting in a kiss on a sprig of oak. You try to imagine Estrid's last hours, and you feel sick. Do you want another story? Well, that was a short story for sure. Fine, let's do it. This is the story of Godfrey the Glue-Maker. Godfrey was a glue maker. He made glue from horse bones and hooves. His wasn't the best animal glue in the region, but he'd been very lucky. He sold the glue to a famous bookbinder in town. However, whilst he had built a very lucrative business, Godfrey had not been able to find love. He was a romantic, a true believer in the concept of the other half. One afternoon, crouched over the dead body of a young fowl he had bought from a widow, he had an idea. After shaking the dirt off it, the animal had fallen off a cliff and crushed its owner. He cut off the horse's tail with a big pair of scissors, stood up and approached a mirror. He raised the horse's tail behind his head and he liked what he saw. It was a new Godfrey, younger, healthier, even with long silky hair. It didn't take much to make him. It didn't take much to make up his mind. Didn't he make animal glue for a living? A few weeks later, and with new confidence, Godfrey met the beautiful Isolde, a young woman who ended up being his wife and whom he loved fervently. One day, while Godfrey was in his workshop working on a hanging carcass, Isolde approached him from behind. She was smiling from ear to ear. She had great news to give to her husband, but the moment she touched his back, something strange happened. Godfrey's shoulder dislocated with a wet crack and both arms suddenly shot back as if powered by strong pistons. The hit landed on her chest. Godfrey turned around and saw Isolde on the floor, her eyes wide open. He ran to her and to his horror found that she was dead. He burst into tears, his face resting on Isolde's chest. Godfrey cried for a long time, unable to move. And his tears moistened the ends of the horse's tail he had glued to his head almost a year ago. Wet crack. What the fuck are these stories? Wow. You look at Doug. Doug looks at you and nods. Another story. Okay, we'll do the last one. Milo the thief. Milo was on the run. He had robbed a shopkeeper and was chased to the entrance of the forest. The chase didn't stop there, and an hour later, when the sun finally set, Milo was sure he wouldn't be caught. Without letting up his pace and always stretching his arms forward to avoid hitting a tree, Milo continued on into the darkness of the forest. After walking for a while, the thief ran into a jagged wall, and almost at the same time he heard a growl closer than he would have liked. Surely he couldn't have managed to escape from the soldiers only to end up being eaten by a bear. With his hands resting on the wall, he looked for a foothold so he could climb up. He was shaken, but the effort was worth it. The thief found the entrance to a small cave, though through which the animal would not fit. He crawled through the darkness and, too exhausted to do anything else, he fell asleep. Milo awoke with the first light of the morning. He looked inside and noticed that the cave was deeper than he had thought the night before. He squatted down and moved forward until he reached a gallery where he could finally stretch out. He couldn't believe his luck. It was the perfect hiding place. Not just from the bear, but from the town authorities. He looked around and noticed a group of mushrooms that had grown on a kind of mound. He approached and plucked one. His belly was rumbling. Without thinking too much, he took a bite. He was surprised by his own recklessness, but it tasted so good. He took a second bite and his legs went slack. He fell to the ground, writhing in pain. He tried to crawl to the exit to call for help, but only managed to let out a weak whimper. At first he felt his body burning, but then he lost all sensation. He was completely paralyzed by the toxins. Unable to even express horror in his face, Milo watched as the mound of earth seemed to move. It was not dirt, but a strange creature with colourful mushrooms growing on its back. Oh! The creature advanced a few feet towards Milo and began to writhe, giving birth to a dozen translucent skinned, shapeless offspring that began to crawl, opening and closing their mouths. And Milo, unable to even close his eyes or move his head to the other side, watched the hideous creature slowly swell as they ate him alive. Damn, that one made a bit more sense. You didn't quite know what to think. Was there a teaching to Milo's story? Thou shalt not steal, curiously killed the cats. Personally, you like stories where the line between good and evil is a little bit fuzzier. One more? Oh, we got a trophy for all of them, nice. It's getting late. Doug asks for one more and looks at Jimmy. Christine's right. Doug starts croaking like a toad, and you pretend not to hear him. Cute. Back to Lou. I really wonder where this is going, honestly. Liz enjoyed telling these stories. There was something about the way he moved his hands, the way he projected his voice, and his shadow. It looked like, I don't know, like he could control the darkness around him. Christine shifts in her chair. But his most striking feature were his eyes. Yeah, there was something about the way he looked at you that took you to the very heart of his stories. Is it you? The couple look at you in silence. They expect you to say something. When was the last time something like this happened? Oh my god, is that going to be Boulder from Bantam Nights? Like a vampire, maybe. AI vampire. The old couple smile, and something snaps inside you. You tell them you are not that person. You're not the author of... Please, I'm busy. Oh, that's really rude. I mean... You hear the old man tat as they walk away. Oh, I just meant like, clarify who. Jerk. Oh, I got a trophy for being a jerk, though. He's holding a copy of a book you obviously recognize. Risen by Falling Stars. With the subtitle your editor added and you never really liked. The secret story of the cryptid walls. Okay, so that must be the Mothman book. You even remember the text from the dust jacket. Risen by Falling Stars by Lou Hill features exclusive first-person reports on the last battle of the cryptid wars in 1966. It's a mouthful. Daddy Boulder, Daddy Boulder! Excuse me, sorry. Risen by Falling Stars had sold more than 100,000 copies. Christine coughs and you apologise. The smiles of the old couple stick with you. Where were those smiles when you released your last book and couldn't sell the minimum required by the publisher? Where were we? Okay, so same chapter, but just different... Actually, no, this is a different chapter. That chapter was literally 2 minutes. Interesting. Varney Lake. You know that if you lived here, it wouldn't be the same. That all of this has value because it has an end. Christine takes out her notebook. Although you did lots of things, you couldn't achieve anything on a summer bucket list. But does it matter? You see your friends smile, and you can't help but copy them. You'd like to tell them how much you love them. But you feel embarrassed. Will you be brave tonight? You don't understand. Why is it so hard to talk to her? But maybe it's not your fault. Maybe you never really had the choice. Like every year, all the kids gather on the beach of the lake to watch the fireworks. The explosions of colour in the sky mark the end of summer. Even though you try to smile, you find it hard to hide the pit you've been feeling in your stomach for the last few days. The simple realization that nothing lasts forever. How many more summers like this one will you have? Do you hear that? Neither of you say anything. Neither one of you ever says anything. It's the toads. Christine grimaces and looks at you. Doug taps you on the shoulder. Doug bursts into laughter. Yes, Jimmy, croak. I've just seen Maggie, so go on, croak like a horny toad. Doug looks down. What's wrong with Christine? She knows her cousin is in love with Maggie. Why would she say something like that? Doesn't she talk to you all the time about her boyfriend? Doug kicks a rock. You want to say something, but you see Brad. Okay, so he's definitely not dead. He looks lost. he looks like a big meathead. You remember end of summer parties of the past, how most kids avoided the place where Brandon and his gang hung out. That Brandon everyone was afraid of. What had Liz done to him to leave him like that? Look who we have here. The guys surround Brandon, and Brandon doesn't seem to understand what's about to happen. Bert, who Brandon once pushed out of a moving car. Tommy, from who Brandon had stolen a slinky just to wrap it around his leg, leaving him with marks that, according to the doctor who treated him, were permanent. Steve, whom Brandon had lifted by the collar of his shirt with one hand and his underpants with the other, to use him as if he were a battering ram to take down his friends while the rest of the gang exploded with laughter. And your friends? Everyone had been talking about it. Without violent and abusive Brandon, the boys were no longer afraid of them. And one of the other members of the gang would dare to come to the fireworks. But what about Brandon? Why had he come? Everything happened too fast, and the moment he hits the ground, everyone starts kicking him. Stop, please! You'll see, motherfucker. Do you like that son of a bitch? They're throwing firecrackers at him? Each explosion illuminates Brandon's terrified face from a different angle. Look at the big baby crying. Should we call Mommy? Alright, she'd rather stick her head in the oven than watch you grow up. Jesus. When the smoke dissipates, Brandon takes a few steps back. Look, the guys point at him laughing. He pissed his pants. Come on, let's get closer to the fireworks. We won't bother anyone anymore. Some spit on him before walking away. Others kick him. That's really sad. None of you move. Brandon looks at you, and you look down at the floor, not quite knowing what to feel. Fireworks mark the end of the summer, and the beginning of something that haunts you to this day. What happened? Oh my god, it's a lot. I'm guessing it's the last chapter. Did they all have 10 chapters? I think so. Why, Christine? Why didn't we do anything? We were young. We couldn't possibly imagine what was going to happen. We couldn't know. It's true. But we just watched, Christine. Okay, so something big just happened. But, like, we don't know what. So we think they're about to explain it. Doug, Christine. That vengeful son of a bitch, Brandon killed him. No. If we'd intervened that night at the beach, if we'd stopped them, no. It's not fair. There was nothing you could have done. Or at least nothing that could have changed your cousin's destiny. Lou clears his throat, and the noise brings you back to the present. There's no easier way to put it, so I'm just gonna say it. Uh-oh. I love how they look. I love how you look as well, Elf. You're an absolute cutie pie as well. Everyone's a fucking babe, honestly. Doug, your cousin, your friend, who everyone thought was dead in the months following that summer of 1954. Oh my god, is he a vampire? He's alive! What? Yeah. And I can prove it. Doug's not going to turn out to be Lee, is it? Or Lee's going to turn out to be Doug? These facial reactions, right? This is a big twist. We didn't see this one coming. But Brandon, your head starts spinning. Just listen to me. It won't take long. This newspaper is from December 9th, 1954. Your cousin had disappeared on December 1st. Every newspaper tells more or less the same story. Watching from a window, an eyewitness saw a big boy savagely beating a smaller one. He went inside to call the police, and when he came back, both boys were gone. A few days later, the witness recognized Doug's face on the missing posters put up by the family. It was the same boy the guy had beaten ferociously. When the police showed him some pictures, he also recognized Brandon, the prime suspects in the investigation after everything that happened that summer at Varney Lake, and whom the police had been able to question because he was missing. Everyone drew the same obvious conclusion. Brandon was behind Doug's disappearance. But the newspapers also mentioned a second witness in passing, Benjamin Vanstone, an addict who lived on the streets. The police took his testimony. However, his statements were dismissed on the assumption that it was some kind of hallucination. Oh my god, the vampire saved him! Vanstone has stated that a winged creature figure appeared above the big boy. And with that one swipe, it carve his head? Oh my god, I love it. The smaller boy was dying. The figure held him in their arms, and it stuck its fangs into his neck. He is a vampire! At that point, Vanstone got scared, hid in the alley, and didn't come out for a few hours. A few days later, he showed up to testify. He couldn't stand the nightmares anymore. Nobody believed him. You understand what this means, right? Lou nods. No, it can't be. Jimmy speaks softly with a broken voice. You look at him with an overwhelming desire to hug him. And you? What do you feel? Your cousin, Doug, he's alive. And what about you, Brandon? What had Liz done with Brandon's body? Didn't his family deserve to know what happened to him? Does it matter? If the story Lee just told you was true, Brandon had tried to kill your cousin. Brandon, never mind that he was your first kiss. Brandon was a son of a bitch. Oh wow, Brandon was her first kiss. But had a revelation. A revelation! Doug's not dead. He's a vampire. He's a motherfucking vampire. Sorry, this is a big twist. You take a deep breath. How many years has it been? No, Doug would have told us. Well, yeah, because the vampire saved him and then bit into his neck because he was dying. So he must be turned. And he's like, no, Doug would have told us. Look. I took this picture a few weeks ago. He's still... Oh my god, of course he's not going to age, is he? It's for the book I'm writing. A biography... Sorry, I keep saying biography. A biography about Doug. The vampire kid. Oh, there's more chapters. I thought that was going to be the last one. A child vampire. I'm still kind of waiting to see if this is going to turn into if this is going to tie in with Bantam Nights though. I can't believe it. The seconds pass. Raindrops clatter relentlessly on the sidewalk with the perseverance of a ruminative thought. Why didn't Doug ever contact you all these years? Where is he now, right? We were told you he didn't know the current whereabouts of your friend, the vampire kid, and that he'd let you know as soon as he had more information. Yeah, no worries at all, Witch. I hope you get some good munchies. Thank you so much for being here. Now we have to wait. Listen, are you okay? Can I give you a ride somewhere? Hugs, Witch, big hugs. Christine repeats the question. Hey, Christine tries to smile. Come here, I'll take you home. No thanks, I need to walk. Does she not know we're homeless? Jimmy? You make an effort to look at her in the eyes. Christine doesn't say anything else. You give her a kiss on the cheek, and you walk away in the rain. Doug is alive. Why didn't he ever call his mother? Does he know his family suffered? But surely, like, how's he going to explain the fact that he's not aging? He clearly knows this whole back information has been doing his own time. Yeah, Louis is such a dick, honestly. How you suffered? You still remember the day Christine called you to tell you about it. Christine was sure that they were going to find him, that Doug was fine, but you suspected the worst. Senior year of high school was one of them of the hardest. All you could think about were Doug's plans. It seemed so unfair that someone had taken away his future. Far from diminishing, the pain grew as the years went by. Alcohol helped you sometimes. It made you forget. You never stopped visiting your friend's mother, even though she didn't lose hope. She suddenly flew into fits of hysteria that tore you apart. You think about what Lou told you, about the witness who had seen the posters papering the whole town. As soon as you heard about his disappearance, you travelled to join the search. Doug lived in the same town as Brandon. How could you not see that something like this would happen? That Brandon would seek revenge? So much pain. The alcohol, the stress, the street fights, the army, Vietnam, the shootings, the smell of the jungle, the return to the country, the desire to leave everything. The night sleeping on the streets, the fights in the shelter. He sounds like a downer. She stopped hanging out with his friend's mom, right? She's not even a MILF. And now a guy like Lou comes along and tells you that Doug is alive? Who the fuck does he think he is? You try to calm down. You know someone is following you. It's the person who was watching you in a bar, hiding behind a newspaper. It's not the first time you've been followed since you came back from Vietnam. And you know exactly what you have to do to lose them. After a while, you get out of the van and wander aimlessly, or at least that's what you think you're doing. The rain follows your every move. You hurry your pace, driven by a force you can't define, a certain attraction, the dig, you suddenly think. What the fuck? This was something you and Doug used to talk about. In one of his magazines, Doug had read about a doctor who claimed that there were people who had a hard time seeing what they were thinking. People who were thinking about an apple and who couldn't see it in their heads. You didn't see the apple. But you could swear that for a second you could see the deer exactly as it had been in 54. How? It's just not fuckable either. How awkward. Imagine, like, I'm not gonna say that. How awkward. They're driving theatre. Like the deer in the mill, something or someone brought you here. You're soaking wet and your legs hurt. How far have you walked already? You cross the grounds facing the huge screen among the poles of the driving's audio system. Some are crooked, some broken too, but others still have their speakers plugged in and you even think you can hear static. There he is. Doug. Your friend who had died. And now he's alive. Doug! Doug takes a few seconds to answer. Who the fuck are you? You croak at the top of your lungs. Oh, he's watching Nosferatu. Jimmy? Jimmy! All these years? Why, Doug? Why the fuck didn't you tell us anything? Your heartbeat quickens with every step he takes. He doesn't look like the same Doug. Jimmy? Why? You really think I didn't try? Your mum, your friends, me. Have you any idea how much we suffered because of you? You'd like to tell him about that first year of desperate search, about the false hope whenever the phone rang, of the grades at school, of the jobs you got kicked out of Vietnam, of the alcohol, the streets, the hunger, but you don't even know where to start. A shriek freezes your blood. Oh, it's him, he's back, and you stop feeling the floor beneath your feet. Let go of me. No! One of the broken speaker poles pierces your stomach. Oh my god, everybody's dying! Jimmy! It's my fault. They won't let me. Doug, I wouldn't forgive myself for being late again. Oh my god. Come here, let me help you. Oh my god, is he going to turn him into a vampire as well? The reflection of the driving screen makes Doug's fangs glow. It will just take a second. Then you'll feel better. With the last of your strength, you grab Doug by the arm and you shake your head. Jimmy, please. Make him promise you. But listen to me. No. I'm tired. Doug looks away, but he doesn't retract his fangs. You try to smile and try to imitate a toad. Little by little, you feel yourself disappearing. You close your eyes. And you wait for everything else to fade away. Oh, that's really sad. Oh, that's really sad. That's where it ends. Fucking Lou. It was Lou. Oh, nice one, Greenie. Nice one. I think it's one of my only runs for special things. I would love to see a like a classic horror film on an out, like in an outdoor driving theatre. Oh, excuse me. ... You don't have to apologise, Max. Thank you. Actually, had an okay ending. He definitely felt a bit more tied up compared to the others. Thank you. John Carpenter's based on a Stephen King novel, Christine. Secret Scene 1. Is that us? Did he do it? He did it. He turned us. Oh, I was actually expecting there to be more. There's 4 secrets. Okay, Jesus. Oh, I really like that. I thought that was great. I thought that was really good. It wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be about all these missing kids. And it turned out he was a vampire, but it was really good.